Welcome to Ghost Files, where the shadows speak and mysteries come alive. If you love chilling stories, haunted places, and the unexplained, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated on the darkest tales from around the world. Let's dive into today's haunting. The Blooming Nightmare of Sakura Village. In the quaint village of Sakura, nestled in the rolling hills of rural Japan, the arrival of spring was a time of great celebration. The villagers would eagerly await the blooming of the cherry blossoms, which would transform the landscape into a picturesque canvas of pink and white hues. However, one particular spring would prove to be a season of unspeakable horror. The trouble began when the cherry blossoms bloomed with an unnatural ferocity, their petals unfolding with an eerie glow in the dead of night. At first, the villagers were enchanted by the spectacle. But soon, they started to notice strange occurrences. People would report finding petals in their homes, on their furniture, and even in their food. It was as if the blossoms were seeping into every aspect of their lives. The first sign of something being amiss was when the village's elderly resident, Mrs. Tanaka, went missing. Her family searched for her everywhere, but she was nowhere to be found. It wasn't until the next morning that her body was discovered, buried beneath a mound of cherry blossom petals, her face twisted into a macabre grin. As the days passed, more villagers vanished, only to be found dead, buried beneath the blossoms. The villagers were consumed by fear, unsure of what was happening or who was behind the sinister acts. Some reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the blossoms, their faces hidden behind masks of petals. One stormy night, a group of villagers decided to investigate the source of the horror. They ventured into the heart of the cherry blossom forest, where they stumbled upon an ancient, gnarled tree, its branches twisted and tangled. Carved into the trunk was a cryptic message: "The blossoms will consume all." Suddenly, the blossoms around them began to stir, their petals unfolding like grasping fingers. The villagers realized that the blossoms were not just mere flowers, but vessels for some ancient, malevolent entity that had been awakened by the arrival of spring. As the villagers turned to flee, they were met with a sight that would haunt them forever. The faces of their missing loved ones, their skin gray and decaying, their eyes black as coal, and their mouths filled with cherry blossom petals. The villagers were surrounded, trapped by the undead and the twisted, blooming trees. The next morning, the village was found deserted, the only sign of life being the cherry blossoms, which continued to bloom with an otherworldly fervor. The villagers were never seen again, and the village of Sakura was left to the mercy of the malevolent force that lurked within the blossoms. The legend of Sakura Village became a cautionary tale, a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things can hide the darkest terrors. The Carnival of Crows. In the sleepy town of Raven's Peak, a mysterious carnival would appear every 7 years, its arrival heralded by the sound of creaking wooden wheels and the distant scent of sugar and smoke. The carnival was a place of wonder, with its colorful tents, death-defying acrobats, and enchanting performers. However, there was something unsettling about the carnival, something that made the townsfolk both fascinated and terrified. The carnival's leader, Mr. Blackwood, was a man shrouded in mystery. His eyes seemed to hold a darkness that was both captivating and repulsive. He would often appear in the town square, his voice booming as he invited the townsfolk to join him for a night of thrills and spectacle. One year, a young woman named Emily decided to join the carnival, drawn by its allure and the promise of adventure. As she became more involved, she began to notice strange occurrences. Performers would whisper to each other in hushed tones, and the carnival's music seemed to have a hypnotic effect on the audience. Emily discovered that the carnival's main attraction was not the acrobats or the fire breathers, but a mysterious show featuring a group of crows. The birds would gather on stage, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly intelligence as they seemed to communicate with the audience. Emily felt an inexplicable connection to the crows, as if they were trying to convey a message to her alone. As the nights passed, Emily began to experience strange visions, full of darkness and feathers. She would see herself standing in a field of black flowers, surrounded by the crows, their beaks whispering secrets in her ear. She started to feel like she was losing her grip on reality, unsure of what was real and what was part of the carnival's twisted spectacle. One night, Emily stumbled upon a hidden tent deep within the carnival grounds. Inside, she found a group of townsfolk, their eyes black as coal, their skin deathly pale. They seemed to be in a trance-like state, their bodies swaying to the sound of distant music. Mr. Blackwood appeared, his eyes gleaming with malevolence, and revealed to Emily that the carnival was not just a place of entertainment, but a conduit for an ancient, dark power. The crows, Emily learned, were not just birds, but vessels for the spirits of the damned. The carnival's music and performances were a form of dark ritual, designed to lure in the innocent and sacrifice them to the malevolent force that lurked beyond the veil. Emily realized that she had to escape, but as she turned to flee, she felt the crows' eyes upon her, their beaks whispering a single word: join. The next morning, the carnival was gone, leaving behind a trail of abandoned tents and forgotten trinkets. The townsfolk, including Emily, were never seen again. The legend of the Carnival of Crows spread, a cautionary tale about the dangers of temptation and the darkness that lurked in the shadows of wonder and enchantment. The Eternal Carnival. The small town of Willow Creek was never the same after the night the carnival arrived. It came without warning, its colorful tents and booths materializing on the outskirts of town like a mirage. The carnival's name, Moonlight Miracles, was emblazoned on a faded banner that seemed to shimmer in the fading light of day. The townsfolk were drawn to the carnival like moths to a flame, their curiosity piqued by the promise of wonder and magic. The carnival's operators, a mysterious troupe of performers and entertainers, seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts, their faces hidden behind masks and painted-on smiles. At the heart of the carnival was a grand midway, lined with attractions that defied explanation. There was the Hall of Mirrors, where reflections warped and twisted like funhouse caricatures. The Timekeeper's Tent, where clocks ran backward and forward and sideways all at once. And the Freak Show, where performers with seemingly impossible abilities tantalized and terrified in equal measure. One attraction, however, stood out above the rest: the Carousel of Dreams, a majestic antique merry-go-round adorned with glowing, ethereal horses that seemed to shift and change color as they spun. The ride's operator, a soft-spoken woman with skin as pale as moonlight, promised that the carousel would grant riders a single, fleeting glimpse into their deepest desires. As the nights passed, the townsfolk returned to the carnival again and again, drawn by the allure of the carousel and the other attractions. But strange things began to happen. People would report finding themselves in places they didn't remember going to, with no memory of how they got there. Others would whisper about the carnival's performers, who seemed to be watching them with an unblinking gaze. One brave soul, a young woman named Sarah, decided to investigate the carnival's secrets. She snuck into the carousel's inner workings, searching for the mechanism behind the ride's mesmerizing effects. What she found was something far more sinister. A series of ancient, glowing artifacts hidden within the carousel's framework. As Sarah touched one of the artifacts, the carnival around her began to warp and distort. The performers and operators revealed their true forms: twisted, otherworldly creatures with skin like stretched canvas and eyes that burned with an inner fire. The carnival, it seemed, was not of this world. Sarah realized that the carnival was a nexus, a doorway between dimensions. The artifacts were the key, and the carousel was the mechanism that kept the doorway open. The carnival's operators were not just performers. They were guardians, tasked with maintaining the balance between worlds. The night wore on. Sarah found herself trapped within the carnival, forced to ride the carousel again and again, each loop revealing a new, disturbing truth. The carnival was not just a nexus. It was a prison, and she was now a part of it. The next morning, the townsfolk awoke to find the carnival gone, vanished without a trace. But the memories lingered, haunting and surreal. Some said that on certain nights, when the moon was full, you could still hear the distant music of the carousel, beckoning in the lost and the brave. And in the heart of the desert, far from Willow Creek, the Moonlight Miracles Carnival was said to be waiting, its carousel spinning eternally, ready to grant its next rider a glimpse into their deepest, darkest desires.